Words don't directly translate across languages. Sometimes you get lucky because they do, but other times the word may have nuances and connotations that you weren't aware of.
Let's talk about it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Why Girlfriends English. Sometimes a language isn't fully able to translate the idea from another language. As English teachers, we do so much with teaching English about the context and the connotation and the feelings that words have, because that's the thing that largely can't translate across languages. Yes, I can talk about a cat and it means a cat. Yes, I can talk about a dog and it means a dog. But it's the deeper parts of the language, of the words, of the ideas that have a very difficult time translating.
When I was in university, I took an ancient Greek translation class because we have a lot of literature roots in Greek. What was fascinating to me was that when I was trying to translate just a word as simple as love, it was not simple in Greek because they had so many words for love in ancient Greek, and to accurately translate those into English, sometimes, love is okay, but we use love for everything. We say, I love pizza, I love my dog, and I love my husband, okay? Those are all the same word in English. Yes, we can heighten our vocabulary and say, I have great affection for my husband, okay? We could say that, but that's weird. Okay, we don't normally say that. This is where I face that challenge coming from another language into English. But we found the same thing to be true for many of our students. To understand a huge list of vocabulary, they try to translate those words to as close to meaning as possible in their original language. Sometimes works out for you, but sometimes it makes you think about and use the word in the wrong way in English. It actually takes you down the wrong path sometimes.
Let's use an example here. So we have this idea of taking care of children, and that's probably most common, is taking care of children. Who's going to take care of the children? Mm-hmm. But depending on what kind of context and connotation you want to spin on that word will depend on what verb you used with the kids. And so that's the part that is highly dependent on the feeling that you want to convey, the feeling that you want the other person to be able to hear as you speak, which does not easily translate across languages. So just as a disclaimer here, if you Google Translate a lot of these words that we're about to say, you're going to find that they mean the same thing. So let's get into some of these. So for example, you could say raising kids instead of taking care of kids. To raise or rear a child. So you only have a child for 0 to 18, 20 years. And so to raise a child up is to get them to become an adult, or to parent them in such a way that they are a working, functional human being. Praise the Lord. Raising them up, teaching them, hopefully, for their childhood.
But you can also say that you're just trying to keep them alive. We have this joke in America that sometimes parenting comes down to feed them sometimes. But this is a much more sarcastic, funny way to say this. Like, I'm just keeping them alive. Obviously, as a parent, you are doing much more than that. You are disciplining them, you're teaching them, you're feeding them, you're caring for them, you're providing for them. But on the days that it's just hard, just really difficult long stretches or seasons of life where it's just very difficult, then we would say keeping kids alive. That's a very informal way to just say, I'm doing what it takes to make sure everybody is alive. I'm at wit's end doing so.
Another one is managing kids. Managing kind of has more of like you're the boss or you're the employer and they're your employees, which is kind of a weird idea. But I think of it as like managing of like a team as well, almost like a coach, where if you have more than 4 kids, it feels like a team. You need to give instructions about, hey, you need to do this and they need to do that. It almost feels like you have sort of team members where the oldest child takes on more responsibility. Maybe they take care of the youngest child. And so in a way, they're not employees, but it's like you're managing a small team to say, hey, if we want to all go to the zoo, if we want to all go to the park, we got to work together and we got to be a team in order to make that happen.
Likewise, along a similar line, we could say handling kids. Now, when I say handling, I'm not meaning like you handle your phone or something like this, but it's more of the managing sense. Okay, handling can mean like you're physically touching or hanging on to something, but it could also mean that you're managing or taking care of something. So when you say like, yep, I'm handling kids, we could also say wrangling kids, but that's more of a southern thing. To wrangle horses or to wrangle cattle, we can say that we wrangle kids in the same way. This again, it's a little bit more informal. It also has a little bit more of a kids are animals thing to it, because we say we're handling cattle or we're wrangling cattle. And that's kind of the idea. Like you've got a group of kids Or maybe you have 2, but you're not quite sure because they're kind of everywhere. Okay, that's kind of the idea, is you're steering them basically while they go about and do what they do. And I'm not talking about not being a strict parent. I'm just talking about how we say this informally. It's like, how are you doing today? Well, I'm wrangling kids today. It kind of means you have a few extra kids and it feels kind of like you're managing the herd, not so much like sitting down with every individual child and instructing them.
The next two kind of go together, which is entertaining kids and distracting kids. Especially if you're on a long trip, this is a crucial job. Somebody has to make sure that kids are a little distracted, and that sounds kind of weird, but if you've been a parent and stuck in a car with a kid for 8 hours, you know exactly how difficult life can be.
Or 12 hours in an airport. We've done that before too.
Kids are like a bundle of energy, and if you don't funnel that somewhere, it's going to come out. You can't just put a bottle cap on it and hope for the best. You have to be able to say, hey, let's do this or let's do that. So being able to entertain or to even just distract, just like, oh, look, what's over there? Let's walk over there, is a very intentional way of taking care of kids.
Another thing that we could say is dealing with kids. Okay, and this means you're a bit annoyed about it. You're just having a rough day. You're annoyed. If somebody asks you, says, hey mom, one more time, you're going to blow. Okay, that's kind of the idea. So I'm dealing with kids. I'm sick of dealing with kids. We say dealing with when we're talking about things that we're just annoyed at in general, or it takes a lot of energy and effort. There's just a lot to it, and it's not worth going through all the little things that it takes to do that. So we'll just say, lump it all together and say, I've been dealing with kids today. I need a break. Or I've been dealing with car problems all day, and I'm just sick of it. I'm just done. You could even say, like, I've been dealing with a group of interns at work and I feel exhausted today. Like, you can say all of that. Dealing with, it's very flexible, really. We could say it for a lot of things, but we do apply it to children too.
Another one that we can use to describe taking care of kids is chasing kids or chasing kids around, and not like in a way of like playing tag or anything like that, but just like sometimes as a parent, you feel like you're having to play catch up with your own kids. They're running ahead. One runs that way, the other one's that way. And you feel like you're having to run around like a chicken with your head cut off. You're trying to figure out where to go and how to go, and you're chasing kids left and right. That's that feeling. And it is a necessary feeling. You could just sit down, but that's not a good idea.
They'll be all right, right?
Right? Please. So chasing kids doesn't necessarily mean actually moving your legs and running around. It means going to basketball games. It means going and picking up a kid from school early because they have a dentist appointment. It means doing all the things that parents normally have to do, and you feel like there's really no time to take a stop and take a break.
Yeah, it's like their schedule's dictating your schedule for a day. And so for a day that's just packed with doctor's appointments and then ball games and stuff like that, we might say that we feel like we're chasing kids. Like you said, like kids are going all different ways, and we feel like we're trying to save them from like hurting themselves all day long. Sometimes it feels like taking care of kids is like going into the gauntlet. The next one is kind of related, but also not in another way, is herding kids. We can also say an idiom, it's like herding cats. Parenting is like herding cats all the time, and the responsibility weight is all on you. So you could say it's like herding cats, and this would mean that you have multiple kids. You can use it in the sense of like you have 2, but it feels like you have 4 because of how hyperactive they are. You could describe it in that way, but you would have to explain a little bit of what you mean, unless that person knows you and they know you only have 2. If you say, yeah, no, herding kids, some people, their first thought might be, well, how many kids do you have? But you could also be a school teacher and you have a classroom and it's just you. So maybe you have 28, 30 kids and it's just you in there. You are herding kids. That is the easiest way to describe all of this, is you are herding kids all the time. But the idea is you're the boss. You're the one who has a point A to point B. You have the schedule. You have all the things laid out. And what you're doing is you're making sure that group of kids gets to where they're going, whether physically or in a time and schedule sense.
I think about a lot of these, but especially that one in terms of like zone defense versus like man-to-man, like herding kids and herding cats and handling kids and stuff like that. It has this idea that you are trying to get them to point A to point B. It's not like you're holding each one by the hand because you only have 2 hands. You have to kind of frame it in such a way that the kids want to go that way. So whether that's entertaining the kids to want to go, hey, let's play a game and I'll race you to that pole or whatever, you have to figure out a way to get these kids who have their free will and freedom of choice of their own to be able to make the right choice. And sometimes that involves an element of management, an element of taking careness of those kids.
Yeah.
It's not an easy job.
The whole point of this list is to show you that we have different ways to describe taking care of kids. So as you, as an advanced English learner, work to elevate your English, you're going to find that all of these things are connected to taking care of kids. But which one you use is determined by the context that you're in and what you really mean and how you really feel about taking care of kids. But at the same time, some languages will not have this many terms for taking care of kids, right? They might have just a few terms, a handful of terms, whereas in English we have more. There's more than what we described today. So for you, one of the things that you need to know is basically don't take an English word and translate it directly into your language with Google Translate, okay? That's not the greatest way to do that. If you are an advanced learner, you definitely should not be doing that. You should be learning English along with its synonyms to fill out your understanding of its meaning. We've talked about that in a previous video, Advanced English Vocabulary Study Guide, which we will put a link in the description to that. But we have talked about this several times on this channel. This is one of those things, though, that we keep seeing with advanced learners. They keep trying to translate things back into their language, but it's not an accurate way, and it doesn't give you an accurate sense of what we really mean when we use those terms.
We're all busy, and we're trying to get as many vocabulary words and as much language under our belt as we can. And the only thing that we can tell you guys is as you get into advanced English, the most efficient way is not to translate it back into your own language. It's to figure out what does that mean and what are the depths of meaning. So just taking care of kids as one vocabulary term, we just learned several other options that have different connotations that you can use in different contexts. If you just Google translated these and put them on a note card, you're not going to learn the different contexts that you can then use this word. You might use these words in a wrong context, and that will show how not fluent you really are.
All right, so one of the things that is also related to vocabulary study is literal versus figurative meaning. So sometimes we say something and it's meant to be taken literally. Sometimes we say something and it's meant to be taken figuratively. All right, and how do you know? We actually talk about this in this video up here. It is one of the biggest problems with translation, really, because with ancient Greek, you have no idea because those people are gone, long gone from now. So you don't really know the sense in which they use things all the time. But you can cross-reference other things. It's the same thing as you're listening to English terms. Maybe some terms like this one today, you can understand by context and the way that we say it. But if you're looking at words on a page, it's a little bit more difficult to understand, okay, is this being used literally or figuratively? We unpack a lot of that in this video right here. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go over there. It's a good lesson.
All right, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us on this video. We will catch you on the next one.